Well, it's the box that's at the top. Yes. Okay, when I go back to YouTube, there is no image there. Okay. No, that's Erik's. He's painting from that. He's painting from that image. Okay, so I don't see I don't see, yeah, that's awesome. Thank you so much. I don't see any I don't see any. Is that on? Let's try another one. Might be the light. You gotta fix those. It's so frustrating. Okay, Jeff, you can just take a seat and we'll start doing some pictures and Erik's getting ready here. So if there's any questions coming through.
Is the audio ready?
Everything should be good. There you go, E. And then let's see how the camera. Now the problem is we won't be able to see it here because we just have to update Flash right now, so it's working on Wirecast, but it's not on that. All right, no worries. So the main thing is up here, probably. Let's see. Do you want to handle that one? Just kind of zoom in and E and. Thanks. You look good, man.
What's up, Erik?
Hey man, how you doing?
Not too bad.
Did you get the arms in?
Because it's gone. We didn't know where it went. Yeah, so I had to go run on the Best Buy and buy a whole new. Thanks, Steve. All right, Erik. Yourself. You are the man.
Actually, can you grab me one of your terps out of your locker? I forgot
Sure.
the terp.
This one should be fine.
Yeah. Cool, thank you.
There's an echo on there. Well, we haven't been doing anything, so I'm not even sure. Where is it? Slight echo. Yeah, we'll just have to deal with it tonight. Yeah, no worries. Thanks for. Yeah, if you want to introduce yourself and everything for the crew out there?
It's going?
Yeah, everything's rocking and rolling.
Alright.
Oh, you're good.
No, I think I'm good. I think I have everything else I need.
If there's anything you need, let me know.
Okay. So how's everybody doing? The Halloween edition of Friday Night Live. Tonight what I'm going to be doing is painting a portrait of Boris Karloff as the Mummy from the old Universal horror film. Earlier in the week I did a series of color comps because I'm going to be painting from black and white reference, which is actually my preference, but in this case there wasn't another option. So I did a series of color comps down here just to figure out the color that I wanted to go for. And I think I'm going to go with, if it's in the camera, this guy down here on the lower right hand corner. But I'm still going to start off with a tonal block in, and I'm going to use raw umber for that.
Hey Greg, what's up? You want me to just drop it all the way down to nothing? Just you want me to just drop it? I'm just going to the computer up here. I just put the slider all the way down to nothing. Is that cool? Okay. Oh yeah, thanks so much to you for the walking.
All right, so we got a question right away here. Hey Eric, this is from Samir. Hey Eric, do you ever have apprehension before starting an artwork, and if so, how do you deal with it?
Hey Samir, that's a good question. Yeah, I do. I think probably almost everybody does. And the way I deal with it is that I don't have any other options. You just kind of have to deal with it because you have to get the work done or you have to get the painting done. And if it's just an exercise, well, if you want to get better, you got to do the exercise. And if it's a job, you have to do it because it's your job. So after the first little bit, I just don't give it any thought and just try to kind of ignore those feelings of insecurity and apprehension and just get the job done, just like any other job. I'm sure probably anybody who has a performance-based occupation probably has those feelings. So just realize that it's pretty natural to feel that way. In fact, I think those feelings are part of what drive us to succeed. If you didn't really care, then you probably wouldn't do a very good job. And if you care, you're going to have those feelings of apprehension. I think it's totally natural. So I wouldn't worry about it too much and just plow ahead. So right now I'm just trying to get this linear lay-in in here. Just my way through the placement. Right now I've got the head placed a little bit high, so I'm going to wipe that out. Warming up on the canvas or on the board is always a bit intimidating as well. It'd be nice to be able to sit down and get in the flow a little bit before doing anything of importance, but no big deal. We'll get through it.
Kenobi wants to know, can you tell us what's in your palette?
My palette right now is a a pretty uncontrolled palette. What I usually set up with is what's generally referred to as the groupe palette, which is a warm and cool of each primary, but then I also add in a tonal version of each one, and then secondary. So it's a pretty uncontrolled palette. It's a pretty open palette. Starting from left to right, I've got titanium white, and then cadmium lemon, and then cad yellow, yellow ochre, cad orange, raw umber, cad red, magenta, transparent red oxide, Windsor violet, ultramarine, cerulean, and sap green. And then also ivory black.
And also, what's the solution in the bottle cap, and what are you using it for?
That's just linseed oil, and I'm just using it for my medium. It's just to loosen up the paint if it's a little dry. You can use just Gamsol or Terp or whatever you use to clean your brushes, but that can tend to burn the colors a little bit, which isn't a huge big deal, but no sense in it if you've got another option. When I'm doing illustrations, I usually use liquid fine detail because it speeds up the drawing time. I just noticed some of my spacing and placing, especially on that cast shadow, was a little off as I started to go in and try and place the arm. There wasn't really quite enough space for it, so.
Samir wants to know, when teaching beginning artists, what idiosyncrasies and bad habits do you see most often?
Most often is the two of the habits I would say that you have to break a beginning student of is they're wanting to go fast. It's much more important to get things right than it is to do them quickly. I've found by moving quickly, all you're going to do is make more mistakes faster, which isn't good. And then the other thing is to break down preconceptions of what they think things should look like and get them to observe. And usually those two things actually go hand in hand. The more you can get someone to just slow down and look at what they're the better they're going to observe. But if they're rushing through something, then they're going to start to draw symbols. And so they'll draw a symbol of an eye or the symbol of an ear or a nose or what have you. And not the shapes that make up that nose or that eye or whatever it is that they're drawing. You know, it could be a tree, it could be, you know, a doorknob, whatever. It doesn't really matter. But just slowing down and observing more carefully. Probably two of the most common sort of hold-ups to people's development. So I'm going to start blocking in a big 2-value pattern with my painting. So I'm mixing up kind of a general shadow color value, which in this case is a sort of a bluish purple. Generally speaking, you want to keep things fairly light, or rather fairly thin in phases of the painting. If you get into thick paint too early on, it can be very difficult to manipulate your drawing. Which, no matter how good you are, there's always going to be some adjustments that need to be made to the drawing.
Mike Davis wants to know, what size canvas are you working on?
12 by 16. And it's actually gessoed masonite, gessoed hardboard that I make myself. I just buy the masonite or hardboard at Home Depot or Lowe's, actually, specifically. And I cut it to the size I want, and then sand it down and put several layers of thinned down gesso.
Samir would like to know, what is your favorite part of being an illustrator?
My favorite part, I guess, is the storytelling, and my least favorite part is the deadlines. I've always really liked storytelling, and I'm a huge fan of movies and comics. That was the stuff that I really grew up enjoying, because I always really liked the elements of creating art. And deadlines, I don't know, I think that's probably what pretty much every illustrator would tell you. Deadlines are no fun. But they do force you to get stuff done, which is good. You know, I have a feeling if I didn't have deadlines, I'd probably never get anything done.
Sean Codling wants to know, I saw that you're teaching a class called Spectrum Illustration. Could you please explain what that is?
It's basically just, it's a pretty standard illustration class where we go through the process of generating ideas all the way through to executing a finish. But we call it Spectrum Illustration because at this time of year, it's nice to give people extra motivation to try and get a piece done to submit to Spectrum, because the deadline is about 3 weeks after the class is over. And so it gives them a nice sort of extra push, and also allows them to get my help in trying to produce a really good piece to submit. So I'd encourage everyone to submit to Spectrum. I think it's just a really good motivation to create work, or to create your best work. Although you really shouldn't need extra motivation for that. But I know sometimes when you don't have deadlines, as I mentioned earlier, and you're not working, it can be difficult to find the motivation to get finished pieces done. And so with that in mind, we thought it would be a good idea to create a class to help people get finished pieces done so that they could submit them to the Spectrum annual. But there's really nothing particularly unique about it, other than the class wraps up right about the same time as the Spectrum deadline.
Are you guys ready for that? You guys want to We're here, aren't we? I know. This is what I'm talking about. This is where the fun is. What's that? There's no space in those spots. No, I can't. That was pretty good. I stole their spot.
Bob Green says, thanks for doing these demos, Eric. Could you talk about how one gets good at judging spatial relationships? Are there special exercises you can do to help?
Special exercises. Special exercises, I would say, drawing still lifes, things that will not change or move on you. Drawing from the live model is a good way, but probably not the best way, because the shapes will constantly change on you, no matter how good the model is. Just by the fact that they're alive and they breathe, not to mention they have to break the pose and get back into the pose, the shapes change. So it's not the best way to learn that skill. So drawing something that doesn't move, cast drawing, is a great way to learn that skill. Still lifes are a great way to learn that skill. Even drawing from photographs, that's a good way to learn that skill. Study people who do it well. Mike Mignola does it as well as anyone. He can, especially some of his older stuff, when he did some adaptations. He did an X-Files adaptation, and he did a Dracula adaptation, where he was drawing actual likenesses of real people. So you can see the way that he would get really, even though he's not known for it, he got amazing likenesses. He's actually really, really good at making it look like people. When he drew, Gillian Anderson, it looked like Gillian Anderson. And so, but he would simplify it down to that really cool graphic, Mike Mignola style. And so you could really see how he simplified it down into just basic shapes. So those are really good exercises. You can even just sit down in your room and draw the doorknob on your door, and not just make it look like a doorknob, but make it look like that doorknob. And I know that can sound a little bit crazy, but it's the kind of attention to detail that you need if you're going to learn to judge spatial relationships and shape analysis. There's a second part to that question. What was it?
Are there special exercises you can do to help?
Yeah, just still lifes, or inanimate objects, cast drawing, things like that. Those are all really good ways. But yeah, always master study, studying people who do it well. One of the tricks to good shape analysis is learning how to simplify things down into simple shapes and still get what is necessary. Learning what is dark and what is light. And it just comes through practice. Like most things, it's great to have a good instructor that can sort of guide you through the steps, but probably, I'd say 80% of it is just sweat equity. Just do it a lot. You want to learn how to draw ears? Draw a bunch of ears. You know, you want to learn how to draw perspective? Go and draw a bunch of perspective. You know, I wish there was a better answer than that. Well, no, I don't actually. It's a lot of hard work, and you have to go in and put the work in. That's really the best way. But drawing things that don't move, don't change. That's a good way to learn your shape analysis. So at least that's what helped me anyway. I would get really frustrated drawing from life because I would try to draw the shapes accurately, and then I'd look up there and I wasn't sure whether the shape was different or if I wasn't drawing it accurately, and it can kind of mess with your head. So being honest with yourself can be really difficult when drawing from the live model. If you're drawing from a cast, you know things didn't move. If you think a cast moved on you, then you might have other problems that need to be dealt with.
Jonathan Beluso wants to know, hey Eric, what's your favorite scary movie?
Alien. Yeah, pretty straightforward, and yeah, easily and far. Second is a pretty distant second. So. I've probably seen it 50 times, and it still scares me every time.
I think the name is Lydian. Is saying, hey Eric, I'm starting Fundamentals Phase 1 tomorrow. I'm really super excited now that I've got all the materials around. Which phase would you recommend having the critiques from one of you guys?
Which phase would I recommend getting critiques? I'd just start with the beginning phase. Yeah, it's good to get critiques at every different phase. So if you're starting with the fundamentals, fundamentals Phase 1 is a really good place to start. The primitive shapes and things of that sort, primitive forms. Yeah, that's all good. Yeah, that's where I encourage everyone to start. I know it can be pretty dry. It's not the most fun thing in the world, but when you start doing it longer, you'll start to realize. I guess the best way to put it is have faith in the process. And Jeff has outlined a really wonderful process and put a lot of thought into it. It wasn't just, hey, I read this in a book, so we'll put that out there. He really looked at what's important and what you need to know and outlined it accordingly. And so starting with those beginning phases and even getting critiques on them are very important, because you might think, oh, it's drawing a cylinder. I'll draw a cylinder. That's a pretty good cylinder, and move on about your day, not thinking you need a critique. You'll be surprised. Submit it for a critique. You'll be surprised, because there's more to it than it seems. It's actually more complex to draw a simple form than most people realize. And once you can do it well from observation, and then eventually you get to where you can draw a completely believable cube, sphere, cylinder, cone from your imagination. So you know exactly what all that lighting is from all different perspectives and all different angles. You'll find that drawing the figure from life becomes much, much easier. To get to get the structure of the thigh becomes a much simpler process when you can draw a cylinder. To get a knee to sit in the proper perspective becomes much easier once you can draw a cube. And I don't mean just, that looks kind of mostly cube-like. No, I mean like a perfect cube where, almost like a trompe l'oeil in a way, where you'd actually fool someone into thinking it was actually a three-dimensional object at a glance. That's kind of the level of mastery that you want to have. so that those things aren't a concern. You sit down to draw and you can think about things that are more important when drawing from life, like specific proportional relationships, accurate shapes, lightness, shape design, things of those nature. But if you're just thinking about, getting a thigh to read like it's coming towards you, those things are going to be a real chore. And it can be really frustrating because you want to get to the fun stuff. You want to get to drawing and making it look like what you're seeing or what you want to see, depending on what your, proclivities are. And if you're struggling with just simple form, it can be really frustrating. I've been there, so it's not like I'm not just talking as a teacher right now. I'm talking as an artist. I've been there. I was a student. There was a time that, I would get really upset and really beat myself up because I hadn't practiced those simple forms enough. I was one of those guys that was like, whatever. I want to draw people. I don't want to draw cubes. Well, people are cubes and cylinders and spheres. Everything is. And so the more that you can get a real mastery of those things, everything becomes much easier to draw.
Yeah, if you try just a little bit to the right. Well, that was a little bit.
Yeah, one person may be referring, whoever we assign to the house. Otherwise, it gets really crazy for once.
Yeah. You're about good.
Thank you.
Samir wants to know, when critiquing work, what thing do you look for first?
Shoot. I don't think there's any one specific thing. Each critique is a unique experience in and of itself. I just look at everything and try to pick out what I feel is the greatest weakness. I don't want to harp on someone's proportions if they're pretty good, just because that's something that I'm looking for. I want to look at the thing that I feel like is the area that they need the most amount of work in. And so I guess if there's one thing I would say repeated problems, things that are a flaw in execution or thought process repeatedly. If someone has a small head on one drawing, I might mention it, but I'm not too worried about it. If I start looking at every drawing they do, and every drawing they do has a small head, well, then we need to sit down and address that. But that's different for each student, for each artist. So, yeah, I just look for what I feel like is the greatest weakness of the person's work, just across the board. Because everyone makes mistakes. And to beat someone up because they, made one mistake one time, that's not very productive and probably not very motivating. But if I see someone making the same mistake over and over and over and over again, then that's something that I critique. So.
Joachim wants to know, hi, who is your favorite artist?
Who's my favorite artist? Mike Hayes is my favorite artist. No, Mike is a very good artist, but my favorite artist is God, it's a tough one because I like a lot of different artists for a lot of different reasons. I would say probably the two artists that made me most want to be a painter, because when I first started taking art seriously and taking classes from Jeff, I wanted to be a comic artist doing interiors. I didn't have much of an interest in painting, but once I saw the work of teacher Glenn Orbick and also Phil Hale, those were the two guys that most inspired me to want to be a painter specifically, meaning I looked at their work and I paint like they did. So I guess that would be the easiest answer. But I also like James Bauma's work a whole lot. Obviously Jeff is a huge inspiration to me as far as painting goes, as far as everything goes really, but as far as being just a painter, yeah, those would be probably four of the biggest ones. But Norman Rockwell, I also like his work a lot. I like Robert McGinnis. I like Dean Cornwell, Mead Schaefer. You know, there's just so many that I really enjoy. The list goes on and on. But as far as probably the guys the two people that have probably influenced me the most, as far as just the way I paint and just even wanting to be a painter, would probably be Glenn Orbick and Phil Hale. So I guess that's the easiest answer.
HC Kenobi wants to know, are you using different brushes for each color?
No. I don't worry about that too much. I know some artists have different brushes for their warm colors and their cool colors. I don't really worry about that too much. I just make sure I clean my brushes relatively thoroughly between different colors. I've never had too much of a problem with that. But if it works for you, do it. You know, that's my answer to most things, materials wise. I really, not that I don't care, because I mean I care because I want people to do good work, but for the most part, I don't really care. Materials don't really mean. I mean, I have the materials that I like, but I'm certainly not going to go, oh, you can't do a good painting with that. Because sure enough, you know, some really good artists will come along and with like the worst brushes ever and a really bizarre palette, and they'll do an awesome painting. So it's more about the hand holding the brush than it is the brush itself. But it's good to be curious, you know. I mean, you don't know what to try if you don't ask people what they do. So nothing wrong with the question. I wouldn't worry about that kind of stuff too much. I have heard that you know, one of the most respected comic artists of all time, Mobius, pretty much used like an over-the-counter, like not a Bic pen, but not something, you know, too far off. It was just like a pen, and he's generally considered by a lot of people to be one of the best, you know, pen and ink comic artists of all time. So, Frank Frazetta is another one who supposedly used really shoddy materials. For his watercolors, he used literally a Mickey Mouse watercolor set, like one of those dry watercolor sets that you'd get at like a, CVS or Walgreens or something over in the kiddie section. So. I've never been a huge fan of absolutist artists. People who act like there's only one way to do things. And they'll argue to the death about it. I just look at if the results are good, you win. Best way to win an art argument. Do a good drawing, do a good painting, that's all I care about. You can justify it all you want. You can hang a plaque next to your work, you can cite, an art history book, you can do whatever you want, but if when you put your brush to canvas something good doesn't come out, I don't give your opinion too much credence, to be honest. Proof's in the pudding.
Jeff Paxson wants to know, Eric, are you not a proponent of the lose the white of the canvas first school? Like with burn umber, or burnt sienna umber before laying down paint?
I wouldn't say that I'm not a proponent of it, because that's basically what I'm doing right now. I'm killing the white of the canvas. I'm just establishing my drawing simultaneously. But as far as putting down a stain right off the bat, I don't have anything against it. I've done it in the past, and I will probably do it in the future. Just for this piece, I wanted to have some fairly vibrant colors, and so I'm killing the white of the canvas with those colors. It's not like I'm going in with opaque paint. This paint, I'm not using any white, so it's just staining in. The same thing, I'm just staining it in sort of as I go, establishing the drawing at the same time. I'm not making any specific value judgments, which is one of the big reasons for killing the white of the canvas. You don't want it to affect your ability to judge values. So by the time I'm actually doing any value judgments, aside from this is light, this is dark, the white of the canvas will be pretty much gone. So no, I wouldn't say I'm not a proponent of it. I'm just not, again, I'm not absolutist about it. I'm not dogmatic about it, where it's like, you have to stain the canvas with burnt umber before you get started. I'm more of a principles guy, than anything. It's like it's the idea behind it, and not the dogmatic execution of something. I like to know why I'm it, and then I will go from there and make up my own decisions about things. I've never done anything just because someone said it was what you were supposed to do. I was always one of those kids that got in trouble because I was a big why kid. It's like, do this, why? And I always wanted an answer, because if you know the why, you can extrapolate on that and make better decisions on your own, and you're not just listening to what someone else told you to do. That's not really a path to long-term success in my mind. I've never gotten good success in things by just doing what someone told me to do. So I want to not that I'm a contrarian. I don't. Some people would say I am a contrarian, but that's not why I'm doing it. I honestly want to know the reasoning behind it. And if they can't give me the reasoning behind it, well, then I need to go find someone who knows the reasoning behind it, because that person understands the idea better. If someone can't give you a reason why, they might not understand the concept as well as they should to be teaching. So yeah, I like to know why, and then if I know why, I can make my own, sort of develop my own process based on the concept, based on the principle, and not just based on dogmatic adherence to tradition.
Poontan wants to know, what do you think makes a figure painting look realistic? For example, is it shape, value, color, accurate lighting?
All of it. Shape, value, edge. All those things put together. It would depend on what you mean by realistic. If you mean what keeps something from looking cartoony, I would say that usually, I'd say the biggest thing would be edge. Because cartoons have very hard cutout edges, and so do comics. You know, they don't tend to have really subtle manipulation of edge. And when I say comics, I mean, you know, traditional, you know, pen and ink comics. Just because of the time constraints, you don't have a lot of time to develop edges. So the shapes may be accurate, and in some instances even the values, but really subtle edge manipulation usually doesn't exist in those media, and so they have what would be called a cartoony look to them. So in my mind, I would say edges. So yeah, I guess edges, but really all of it together. If any one of those elements is missing in commitment, then you're going to lose an element of reality. But as far as a convincing illusion of three-dimensionality and real-world space, I would say edges. If I had to answer one thing. So I hope that answers your question.
It's like the coffee guy on Saturday Night Live, the guy that's all strung out on coffee. I don't know what that. He just went around and like, oh, this big, and he's like all. Look how you been now. 5 hours ago, you were. Didn't you post something where you were at? Was that last week? Yeah, I just saw it. Is it 5 hours ago? Those comps came out really good, Ian.
Thanks, man. Doing okay. Just trying to get the canvas covered. So we can start getting into some fun stuff.
Thanks for sharing the love over here. I'm liking that. I'm liking what I was hearing. No, I was like.
All right. Well, now I've covered the white of the canvas, as someone asked about earlier, and that's. So yeah, I do like doing that. I don't have a problem with that at all. It's a good process to follow. So now I'll probably start going into the face and start getting a little bit more specific in my drawing. Before I move any further, I'm going to double check the head size. Looks pretty good. I'm still keeping the paint fairly thin. So this is where I'll start really ratcheting down on the drawing. Before it was just kind of, you know, big picture, big proportions. Not getting too caught up in specific shapes. Now is where I'll be going into that 2-value block-in phase, or that, you know, that Mike Mignola phase. He's definitely one of those guys that I'm constantly chasing after when it comes to a great many things, but especially just shape design. He's so good at taking complex things and breaking them down into amazingly simple shapes. And because of that, I don't know that he's as respected as a draftsman as he should be. Because he makes it look so simple. But it's so hard to draw that simple. I've seen very few artists that can achieve that kind of subtlety with just very graphic shapes. He's another one that's really one of my favorite artists. In fact, his work is probably one of the, not probably, it's one of the only, he's one of the only comic artists that I still buy pretty much everything he does. I really hope to one day get to do covers for some of his books and be able to draw and paint some of his characters. It would be a real pleasure for me. So. So I'll open my eyes up when I look at my painting, and then squint back down when I look at the reference, whether it's a live model or a piece of photo reference, or whatever it is, whatever my source material is. I squint down when I look at the source material, and then open my eyes back up when I look at my painting. You want to avoid squinting at your painting or your drawing too much, because it can lead to sloppy shape design. So you'll be going through and you'll think it looks really good, and then all of a sudden you open your eyes and it's just really messy, really sloppy.
Frizo Lydian wants to know, do you think it's possible to succeed in two demanding careers in different arts, i.e. illustration and painting or music?
Do I think it's possible to succeed in... do I think it's possible? Yeah, sure it's possible. Difficult? Yeah, difficult. Only because so many of those types of careers, they tend to be more than a career. They tend to be a lifestyle. So if you're going to dedicate yourself to something that can have a tendency to become all-consuming, then you just don't have time for multiple things like that. So yeah, at some point you'll probably have to pick one, because the people that you're going to be competing with for work are going to commit to just one thing. It's a bit like sports, I suppose, and that when you're young, if you're a good athlete, you're a star athlete in a great many sports. But as you get older and you want to move into collegiate level, or certainly pro level sports, you kind of have to commit to one. There was a time that you saw a few guys that played multiple professional sports. I don't think you're going to be seeing that too much anymore, just because of the amount of dedication it takes to compete at that level. It's very, very, it's pretty much all consuming really when it comes down to it. And being an artist is very much, it requires that same level of dedication. So is it possible? Yes. Is it difficult? Yes. Only because there's only so many hours in the day. I actually have a very good friend who is a neurophysicist. And for a long time, he split his time between a professional level of pursuit for his art and also science. And at some point, he still does art, and he still does it very well, but at a certain point, he had to pick which one he was going to be a professional at. And he picked science. I had to give up being a professional arm wrestler at some point. It was a dream of mine. I saw Over the Top and it changed my life. But yeah, sadly I had to give that up to pursue my art.
Nezen79 says, Loomis has two ways to paint, soft to hard edges or hard to soft edges. Which do you prefer and why?
I would say that I tend towards the hard to soft edges because it just works better for me. I've tried both. The soft to hard method I've heard referred to as pulling it out of the soup, and that's a little too seat of your pants for me. I like a more controlled way of painting, and so I tend to go more graphic, and I block in really clean shapes and then soften the edges. It just works better for me. Again, I wouldn't say that it's the right way to do things, but it's the right way for me. But he's definitely right that you probably want to have a tendency to go one or the other. At that, again, certainly not an absolute. Try it, find out what works for you. But I personally tend to go more, as you can see from the painting here, I tend to go more hard to soft. So as I continue to progress through the painting, you'll see me start to bring in some soft edges. Good questions, though. Lots of good questions.
Joachim wants to know, what do you think makes an artist an artist?
Oh, wow. That's a loaded one. That's a get me in trouble kind of question right there. That's up to each person to decide, really, and that's my diplomatic answer. But I honestly do believe that's what makes you an artist is what you think makes you an artist. It doesn't really matter. I mean, I have pretty on what makes someone a good draftsman, but as far as what makes someone an artist, honestly, again, it sounds a little callous, but I really don't care. I have art that I like. I have art that I don't like. That doesn't make it good or bad. It's just my interests. It's kind of like the difference between someone saying, I don't like horror movies, which I can totally accept, and people saying horror movies suck. It's like, well, that's like your opinion, man. So, but yeah, I mean, for me, the art that I like, the art that I most admire is good storytelling. Artwork that tells a good story. That's what I like the most. But I've also seen great artists that don't tell a story. I mean, John Singer Sargent, great painter, not really known for his narrative work. Richard Schmidt, not really known for his narrative work, but wonderful artist. Yeah, that's up to each person to decide. Why did you get into art? Well, that's what makes you an artist. So that's my honest and heartfelt answer, and also my political answer. So I really do believe that, even though it sounds like I'm kind of skirting it, and control of the academic you have, solution you're going to be able to come up with, and so the world of creativity becomes wider, becomes broader. I think anyone who encourages ignorance is probably not someone that I want to spend a lot of time with.
Andros is saying, it seems to me the light source is warm, so shouldn't the shadows you're blocking in right now be cooler?
They're bluish purple. So I'm not really sure how much cooler they could get. But that's also a bit of I wouldn't say it's a misnomer. It is accurate. Warm shadows, that is accurate, but it's a relative thing. It's not like if you've got a red cloak, just because it's in the shadow, it's not going to become blue. It's still going to be red, but it's going to be a cooler red. Right now, it's actually this is a pretty unrealistic juxtaposition. If this were a mummy, a real mummy, in real lighting, the shadows would probably not be anywhere near this as cool as I have them. So, yeah, they're bluish purple right now, and that's definitely very much on the cool end of the spectrum. But also, I'm inventing the colors, and so I'm kind of doing what I want. I'm not going after realistic lighting necessarily. I really like, again, I mentioned that I really like James Bauma's work. I also really like Basil Gogos's work, and those are two guys that they didn't care. Whatever, they're the honey badgers of the illustration world. They don't care. They're just doing whatever they want, as long as it looked cool, as long as it worked. That's what they did. But yeah, be careful of that rule. It's a good guideline because yes, if you have a warm light source, your shadows will seem cool by comparison, but that doesn't mean you're going to have, yellow light source and then your shadows are going to be, cerulean blue. So, yeah, just be a little cautious with that. Don't overdo it. I mean, purple to me is definitely cooler than orange. So.
Michelle would like to know, for the request a critique online program, how many pieces are submitted and reviewed each week?
You submit one review a week for most of the programs. I think all the programs actually. You submit one a week. I have had students submit multiple pieces in a week. So for instance, if you do a quick sketch and you submit quick sketch, well, you're not going to submit one quick sketch. I mean, that doesn't really make any sense. What I've always told my students is basically within reason, you can submit multiple pieces, but I may only do an actual draw over of one of them. But if you're going to submit quick sketch, go ahead and submit a full page of quick sketch, or submit 4 or 5 of them. Otherwise, because that also makes my life easier as well. If I'm trying to critique your quick sketches based off of one quick sketch, that makes my job really hard as well. Because again, I'm guessing at what you're doing based off of. So now I'm going to this head and trying to get it a little bit more blocked in. Bring in some additional values now. Really trying to think about each stroke that I put down. So for the first time, I'm actually going in and putting in some opaque paint. Up until now, it's been still pretty, what I would consider stains.
I used to do times. I didn't tell me I had a cool type in school. We used to do photo shoots. I went through years of this. She texted me. All sorts of crazy stuff. That's cool. She seems like she's really good. Yeah, good for them. Yeah. Well, she used to do yeah. She's just real. What's that? She's just real
If they couldn't, I'd be a bit of a hypocrite taking their money to teach them how to draw and paint. I am not what I would consider naturally talented, at least not especially so. My natural talent, I would say, is just loving doing it and having a reasonably good work ethic. So, but yes, absolutely. I think someone can be trained, but it's a really difficult one. You don't want to tell people not to think about things, but you can overthink things very easily. And that's one of the great challenges one of the great challenges for me anyway, of being an artist is you don't want to overthink things too much, but at the same time, you have to learn, and you learn by thinking about things. So, what I would say is that when you're studying something, think about it intensely. But when you sit down to produce a piece of artwork, that thinking should already kind of have been done. That's why you study, so that you've incorporated that knowledge into your natural thought process. Second nature is what it's called. You study something until you don't have to think about it as much. It's just the way you do things. And at that point, you don't even remember that you ever learned it. And so, but at the same time, when you sit down to actually do a piece of artwork, I don't want to have to think about the structure of an eye when I'm doing this painting. So, after that's why I study eyes at other times, and that's my time to study eyes. So I hope that answers the question. It's a very good question, and one that I think every artist has to deal with. And also a bit of it depends on your personality too. Where I went is I didn't study other artists because with very few exceptions, I thought that I was unhappy with the amount of mood got in their work. I felt that it was very clinical and boring. Certainly not all. There's great guys like Mead Schaefer that have a tremendous amount of mood in their work. But I always felt like this was greater achieved by directors. And again, as I mentioned earlier, I'm a huge fan of movies. And so I studied movie directors because I thought in general they did it better. So, and it doesn't matter if you do it with a camera or you do it with paint. If you're creating a mood, you're creating a mood. And so I studied a lot of directors, Orson Welles, James Whale, David Fincher, Ridley Scott. These are a lot of the guys that I went to because I thought that they did a great job of capturing the kind of mood that I wanted in my paintings. So I didn't really ever want to be a director for some strange reason, but I want my paintings to look like my favorite directors. I know that's a really bizarre contradiction, and I don't even have a real clear answer for why that is. I always wanted to be a painter, but I always really wanted my work to look like a movie. So, I'm not really sure where that came from, but so yeah, that's where I go for mood. I go and look at movie directors. But as far as emotion, I think you just have to paint well enough that your lack of ability no longer gets in the way of the way that you feel about things. If the way you feel about things is, I don't know how to draw that, well, then that's going to be the mood in your painting. That's going to be the emotion in your painting, is that you don't know how to draw that. So that has to become a non-issue at a certain point. But also, another recommendation I would make is don't forget to go out and live life. It's very important to get your study time in and work hard at being a good artist. But you may find that if you let that become all-consuming, that when you actually get good enough to say something with your artwork, you might not have anything to say. So go and do other things, experience life, experience the world, experience people. Don't end up being in your own little world too much. Because for people to relate to your work, you're probably going to have to learn to relate to people. So. But again, that's just my 2 cents worth. You know, there certainly have been a lot of great introverted artists out there that, you know, all they ever did was paint. So. I'm going to take a short break here for a minute to go get some water. I didn't realize I'd been painting for this long already. So I'm going to take a short break. I'll be back in just a couple minutes. Please come up.
Was that?
Please come up.
Right. Yeah. So that up the second one. Quality was like pretty solid.
Where'd you go,
Let's break down, or get down Magdalena and go right up Encinitas. Kind of high level. It's next to Napa, I think.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's pretty happy with it.
Yeah, it's good. Thanks.
Yeah. Oh, it's nice to you. Yeah.
It might be more like 90, 10. So yeah, I try to shoot everything that I can photograph myself. I try to. I don't want to have to bend my vision to the reference that I can find. I want to stay true to the idea that's in my head as much as possible.
Did you head back up a little bit again? HC Kenobi is asking, do you prefer the Gesso Masonite board to canvas, and if so, why?
For more rendered pieces, like my illustrations, I prefer the gessoed masonite because it's a more firm surface. In general, I prefer more firm surface. I don't like, or I shouldn't say I don't like. I do use them. I don't like as much the stretched canvas, but I use it from time to time. More for my like when I paint from life. Why I chose this for this, I don't know. I did. I don't, probably because I'm more comfortable painting with it. And when I'm doing a painting in front of a bunch of people, I want to paint with what I'm most comfortable with. But I'm also very cheap, and it's a very cheap surface to paint on. I won't ever paint on something because it's cheap if I don't feel it's as good, but I actually do like it as well. So it's kind of a win-win for me. It's like, oh, it's affordable and I like it. But I've painted on canvas board, I've painted on stretched canvas, I've painted on just about everything that you would paint on board. And I like them all for different reasons.
Speaking of gessoed masonite, do you have problems with the oils sinking in?
No. I give it 3 coats of gesso, so it certainly sets it up more than canvas does. But no, it doesn't really bother me. As with any material, over time, you pick the things you like, and you learn to deal with the things that you don't. I've never painted on a surface where I just fell in love with it, and I thought, oh, this is the best thing ever. When it comes down to it, I still have to paint on it, so it doesn't really matter that too much. It will dictate to a certain degree the look of your painting. Probably as much or more than anything else aside from your own sensibilities and ability. The surface will dictate the look of your painting, but in the end, I have to do the painting, so. If I'm good at painting, then it will be good, and if I'm not, it will not. But I think I've got it back in line now, so.
HC Kenobi's asking, do you sand each coat of gesso?
No, just the last one. I'll sand the board before I gesso it, and then I'll water the gesso down, and then so that it's very thin. And then after the last coat, I'll sand it very lightly. At one time, I sanded it between each coat, but over time, I kind of just tried different things and realized it didn't seem to be that much different to me, especially if I'm watering down the gesso. So that's another thing, try it each way yourself, and maybe it'll matter to you. It didn't really matter to me, so no sense in adding that time to my process.
It could be the streaming, it could be the connection. Actually, it's not too bad. Shouldn't be much different. Call Greg and see how it's looking from his end, because he's watching it before the camera.
Like this somehow, like that. I don't know how he was, but he has to hold that for, you know, hours.
Right, yeah. I mean, he's got the physique for it, so. Yeah, you know, I actually gave him the contact information for this. Yeah, he does. He does.
We can't tell if it's out.
So at some point in the future, I'd like to shoot some Christmas yeah, I gotta put together ideas. It's you guys. It's a cool question. Okay. Yeah, when you come I'll get some sketches together. So next month. Yeah.
It's like, I was looking at the book of the stand. I found it. And it has like, yeah, it's like,
That's awesome.
yeah, meta, yeah, meta, right. It's a great, very expensive face. Or maybe that's just either way. Seems to get I do have a seat. I usually have the front center seat. Yeah, it's I've sat on that seat for probably 9 or something. But today I wasn't here for so yeah, I didn't get my seat. It's okay, I got there's some chunk. No, everybody here is swimming. But no, it's going pretty good so far. Edges are placement's pretty good. Yeah, I feel good about it. Most of it. I'm gonna fill it in with that. See how it is. But you have did you finish the one that?
Well, it's like 10% left.
Lydian is asking, what have
But we get each other's input on pieces all the time, but just actually working on pieces together as much anymore. But yeah, I use her as a model all the time. Usually if there's a woman being attacked by something foul in one of my paintings, it's usually her that's being attacked. So.
Ryan Morin wants to know, is there going to be another illustration boot camp with you, Michael, and Lucas? Will it be an annual thing?
It is going to be an annual thing, but the next time, it's going to be about a year and a half between this time. So it'll be about a year from this January we'll run it again. We wanted to switch it to the winter because we think that there might be fewer distractions than originally we thought. We would run it right before Comic-Con, and that would allow people to come out and save on trip money to come out and take the boot camp and then go to Comic-Con, but it actually ended up being quite the opposite. I think we only had one of the people that came out to the boot camp go to Comic-Con because people were saying how they couldn't spend 2 weeks away from home, and we didn't even think about that really, which we should have. But yes, there will be another illustration boot camp, and we should have some announcements about that very soon. So we're working on some stuff. But yeah, I would say we'll have an announcement about that sometime in the next 2 months. Exactly what's going to be going on with it. So maybe sooner, but I'd say definitely by the end of December we'll probably have some information about that. But yes, we will definitely be doing another one, and right now it's tentatively planned for January of 2016. So don't hold me to that, but that's right now the date that's been tossed around, and it sounds like it's pretty solid. But yeah, we enjoyed it, and we had a really great time working on it. So yeah, absolutely, we'll be doing more of them.
Nazen79 is asking, how do I start building my visual memory to draw from my imagination?
Draw things. If you draw it, then you'll commit it to visual memory. That's the best way. Just staring at things. It's okay. I mean, it's better than not, I guess. But yeah, draw something. If you want to commit, if you want to be able to draw horses out of your imagination, sit down and draw a bunch of horses. If you want to learn how to draw people from your imagination, well, go draw a bunch of people. I don't think there's any other real way to do that. There hasn't been for me. I know that once I've drawn something, it's in there. And the more I draw it, the more clearly I can recall it. Yeah, generally my answer to most stuff is going to be draw a lot. How do you do this? I'll draw a lot. How about this? Draw a lot. I always tell people doing a painting that sells for $200,000 isn't hard. It's the next one that's hard. It's once you've sold a painting for a bunch of money. The next one. Yeah. That's the $200,000 painting is the one after. so I'm relatively happy with that face. Happy enough to start moving along here. Let me get out my moving along brush.
wide that is. And we have that in can check, sometimes it's best to slip a little, maybe cheat a little bit at the end. I noticed that. Yeah, yeah. But with the chair in there might help. Right now, it just looks like, it's so stark when it's away, that that's a bad tendency. It's clogging. I can get caught in undue stress, just because it's kind of wide, and I don't get the shape of the chair handle is in there. It's dark right there, here we go. Be careful with your sartorius attachment on the inside of the knee, shooting way too far through. And, to be awesome here in town, that wood is cut in, probably that dramatic. It looks like compound fracture or a tumor or something. Yeah, the muscle doesn't bulge. It doesn't turn in that dramatic. Although I like the way you're topographically kind of explaining things, it just needs to be topographically correct. Because topographic lines can look cool. Yeah. They disguise problems with you. So just make sure the body. You really want to learn how to do it really well. Because they will make it very what kind of fashion side you got on today? We're kind of wild. It's pretty wild. Yeah, really strong sense of identity with their masculinity. Oh, that's cool. That's cool. That's a nice little drawing right there you're going in. Yeah, I like it. Good sculpture. Yeah, I mean, it's got some issues, but the overriding character of the drawing, it kind of lends itself well to the issues that it has. So I don't know. I mean, I don't know if I would advise fixing it. There's wonky aspects to it, like just some of the stuff in here and like.
Cool Stuff wants to know, so when you're painting this, Eric, is it the idea of it, the light, or the scene that motivates your decisions for a focal point?
I would say probably the lighting in this particular instance. I really like lighting in general, and trying to capture that mood of the lighting is something that really inspires me and motivates me in a painting. So I guess probably that more than anything. I mean, in a case like this, the face is going to be the focal point. So you don't really have too much ability to mess with that. But within the face, how exactly you direct the eye through there. Yeah, the lighting can really push that. So like, for instance, right now I'm putting in these hot spots and trying to yeah, a lot of these the old horror film images, one of the things I always really like about it is the lighting. They did so much with so little. I think they often knew that a lot of stuff didn't look very good in the light of day, so they had to try and create mood through lighting, and not now where I mean, a lot of great stuff gets done now, but quite often they solve problems by just spraying it with the money hose. and not really having to come up with creative solutions as often. And I can't blame them, you know. It's probably the better way to do it, but there was a charm back then. Again, I hesitate to say better because it really probably isn't, but just different. And it's nice to see people have to actually solve problems through cleverness and creativity, and not just more money. And there's also just the looking at it with, you know, a kid's eyes, which I can't do with anything that's new, obviously, because I'm not a kid anymore. But it does seem like a little bit of the wonder has been taken out of things. I used to love watching making ofs when I was young, and seeing all the really cool stuff that they did, and sometimes how amazingly simple their solutions were, like that opening credit sequence of the Thing, where they are what they do.
And you've got also it's embedded in the actual tendon. So it's kind of raised above the knee, so you get extra leverage out of it, bump into the bones of the knee. The tibia, the tuberosity, right about, altitude at 20. Now in here, you get a little bulging from the tendons that attach on the inside of the knee right here. And there's about 3 of them. Let's forget, so I can, there's gracilis, sartorius, semitendinosus. It's the hamstring muscles mostly coming around and attaching on the inside of your knee. So it tends to bulge right here a little bit before you get into this part of the shin, into your shin bone. So your tibia is right underneath. And it's going to settle around there as well. Now, you have it high on the outside, low on the inside. The fibula is going to be running outside. So again, you're not going to see the tibialis anterior on most people. I mean, he's a runner, but it's not always that noticeable. But you know it's there. It's going to be. It's going to encroach. So your shin is the center of your shin is going like it's very sharp. You feel it, it runs that crest. It kind of comes up. So subcutaneous, you're going to have it right in through here. The tuberosity with the common tendon of the hamstring muscles all kind of converge on this point. So all these guys are slipping over the top and then attaching out of there. So we have subcutaneous bone here, 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 here. They're all really screwed together. But, have a hard feel of that. So again, gastrocnemius next to shin, soleus underneath, soleus behind. That little stair step down, you might want to put a secondary stair step underneath it, so it doesn't just drop. It looks like it's dropping in, it drops in, goes down. I've kind of played around.
Friezo to know, not that I don't love Erik or Jeff, but are Lucas or Ben scheduled to do one of these? Another one with Robert would also be amazing.
I don't know about Lucas or Ben, but I'm sure Robert will be doing another one at some point. Just getting them time to do it is very difficult, because time here doing this, and not that we don't love you guys, but time here doing this is time away from family and time away from deadlines, so it can be very challenging to commit to. I think if it was up to them, they'd probably be here doing one, but there's a lot of different things to try and manage. As it is, as artists, as professional artists, we spend a lot of time away from trying to get work done. And now that Ben just got married and Lucas has a baby daughter, and well, not a baby so much anymore, but a toddler.
And then there's these little bursts of sacs on the other side that are kind of fluid-filled sacs, and you've got lots of ligaments and tendons, and you get a lot of play going on.
So yeah, very difficult to commit, unfortunately, and usually seat of your pants painting and decisions have to get made to
So the ankles are kind of thick right now.
make sure you keep moving forward and getting stuff done.
And he has some ankles, but I'll see the ankles up here.
It's not the same as when I'm working on a job and I can sit down and do a study or a color comp, or sometimes I'll even stop and take a photo of the painting and take it into Photoshop and try some different things in Photoshop to see what works. And yeah, just one of those things. Because I don't dislike it. I'm not entirely sure it's the best choice artistically or not. A lot of other things to deal with before I can really start second guessing myself too much. Yeah, again, a good question. And I don't have a real clear answer to that, to be honest.
So the ramp up at the toe.
I had a choice to make, and I didn't have a clear answer in my own head, so I went with what was there, what's in the reference.
He does do good feet, and he does do pretty good hands. They're kind of a little cartoony.
Generally speaking, if I don't have a good reason to change the reference, I don't change stuff just to change it. Generally speaking, I have to have a pretty good reason.
Find your little tendons, 1, 2, coming off all the toes.
But I'm sure that I could probably
Find the arc line. Find the second arc line.
tone that down and it would still work.
Heel in there, underneath it. Make sure it inserts around, really articulately, and then clean it up a little bit, get rid of those. And again, this can be ultimately got rid of that. You kind of do the saddle and kind of start it, stop it, pick it back up again. But you might want to draw it in the beginning, just when you're finding it, kind of helps a little bit. On some people, the middle toe or second toe is longer than the big toe. Some people it's the other way. But if you can make it out, no one's going to be able to find that again. Whatever you think works best for the situation. Again, it's a little V, like a bit of toes in there. You need a little too, and that's where you use a little bit of tone. Before the tendons start heading out. And then you get some vein networks and stuff. Yeah, mostly keep your wits about you. Start learning to bend the rules as you see us do it, and you're probably going to learn that from watching us, because it really isn't something you learn out of a book. I've never seen it really taught in a book form. And because it's such an ethereal concept, it's thinking differently than you would have, or maybe you would have done it, but you just, there's not as much finesse, or you wouldn't, I don't know. Each person will have to answer that one, whether they would have. but it's distortion, proper distortion. Is what we do. Not for changing the distortion, but where it is now. And again, it's kind of, there's a, we've got a bit of an uphill thing here, but I think our box is a little wonky. I'm sure I like what we got from here. Not close to perspective too much on. A little bit. And again, you go through that same process of kind of finding, you know, the counterals if you want. And then again, even at home with tracing paper, just kind of, you know, get in there and kind of find. Yeah, that's probably my concern here today. You really have to know them generically to be able to draw them and tell them that you're really taking it like a CAD system and turning your head.
I can see that when you have those like horseshoes.
Yeah, because knowing that and being able to know those other kind of cells and know where you're going aspect of it, it's really, you know, it's really great luxury. So where you're going into, what you want to go into, there's no it's absolutely pivotal.
Yeah.
And there are 2 years of study, so you just basically get on track with it like you're doing, you're here, you're safe, you're going on it, now you just got to start to do it. Over the years, slowly built an incredible appreciation for it, and understanding of it through academic study, but also, you know, these are your advanced anatomy classes, really. And this is where you really apply what you're learning. Quick Sketch is one of the best anatomy classes ever, one of the most advanced. And it can be done very simplistically. It can benefit you at any different level because of, you can just tailor it to the level you're at. So at the beginning it's mannequinizing, it's long lines, and it's learning to break down complicated form and break it down into essential geometry, which is the same thing I just did here. You know, just more time doing it. You know, maybe on a 5 minute or 30 seconds to just put that right in, maybe 45 minutes maybe, which is not a lot of time. So then you're really cutting down the essentials and cutting to, you know, getting the real narrow of what best. Then you can reverse engineer in these longer classes and learn how to really, how to indicate in those short situations by knowing what it is you're trying to indicate, but you can't indicate what you don't know.
Yeah.
You know, how do you so, you know, that little swing shot you went back to and studied academically, apply it realistically, apply it, because you gotta learn how to do that. Your sketchbooks start, you know, putting together fantastic compositions and fantasy-based stuff where you're just trying to draw figures out of your head, and that'll fire you right back into this stuff. And you'll go back and forth like that for a long time until you get intuitive. And when you're intuitive, then you have the skill sets to do the kind of stuff Erik does, or these guys that kind of do the same thing that we do years ago. But they stuck with it, and they some of us learned to really love it. Erik was one of the ones that really gravitated towards anatomy like I did, and probably is the second. Both of us are probably in some ways.
At least on my back, I just we got like probably 200 hours back up in
Stuff, but you know, we only have one editor, and he's also got a tutor for us, so I don't want to burn him out. So I just this is one of mine. Always really is one of my 15 hours a month. No one really outpace that. So in a couple of years, we'll be by the end of next year, we'll be an hour to watch this contract.
the price for it.
Oh, I know. It's
$400 for you.
yeah. Oh, it's that's Steve's, right?
Yeah, Steve's on there and.
Yeah.
Bobby.
Yeah, so I think it's one of those things where everybody has a slightly different business model. I just wanted to make it affordable enough where people wouldn't have to race through it, and make it robust enough where people could really get in there and take their time as if they were here. I try to create a similar community. It's very hard to do because nobody's done it yet. So it's everybody's kind of looking for a way to do it, but it just takes so much foresight with the curriculum, and most of them don't have curriculum.
Cool Stuff is asking, are you using a medium?
Just a little bit of linseed oil, but not much.
So, I mean, that's one thing, if you want a curriculum that proves time and time again that you can get somebody good from scratch. And once you've done it with hundreds of people, you know it's solid. And it's just a matter of, okay, that's a solid curriculum, that works, now you gotta learn how to lay it down. But that's one thing I don't see is like, Steve, all those guys, they don't have curriculum. They're just putting out really good content and hoping that you can fill it out, somehow and learn how to navigate.
It's pretty much all you, their process is what, it's just he like took the project and was working.
Yeah, which is awesome if you're me. If you want to go, I want to go and watch TV, I mean, oh, cool, man, I can interpret that, I can interpret that, but it's like, once you figure it out, it's like, and you gotta take the fundamentals, you gotta take them all the way back to everything that you learned when you were just starting. Nobody wants to do that, that's not fun stuff, that's keep it shovel.
That's how he started his, he showed all his like influences and then he broke down every stuff and he started doing triangle squares.
You gotta, you can't just be running people into like advanced concept stuff. I mean, you can, but it doesn't work. It's like, people try, I mean, all the people that try to get through workshops and all that. It's not a case for somebody when they're developing, and how valuable that skill to be able to assess, pinpoint, and then direct someone, at any different level all the time. I mean, that's the art of teaching, teaching this stuff. So that's what makes it so hard. You have to have something really invested in wanting to get somebody really good. Most people just aren't, they don't have the time. Maybe they are, they just don't have the time to sit down with someone. And the classes in and out are willing to come in every day. Once for them to be back, they don't find anybody that's a high power doing that. Yeah, and that's cool.
I got a workshop that didn't have here.
Yeah, well, it's good too. I mean, it kind of gave you the ability to see where, school and see if there's something you might want to do. And a lot of our workshops are for screening the school early. I mean, like the boot camp is, it's putting out with them, see if people want to maybe move here. And that's really what it's for. I give them a working understanding of where they're at the big picture, right? So they go home, they know how far they really are from where they want to go, and also what proper training looks like. Most of them don't know. Because once they see it, they can say, there's no way I can do that. I just don't do it. I never thought it was that hard. And it's probably better they come out earlier than later. That's how it is. And you're not trying to, not dissuade them from doing anything you can't hurt them with it. This is how it can be. Probably. You may be able to do something faster, maybe do something a little slower, but out of the thousands of people who can come through and all the people that are around you, no one sidestep certain things. They all had to go through that. And you know that. And then you just have to make sure that those people understand that. And then are they willing to go through it? But once you can paint a picture of it and say, yeah, there is a way to navigate all this stuff, but you need a good guy, somebody who's been through it or knows how to take people through it. Yeah, yourself. Yeah, it doesn't matter what you know. But anyway, hopefully it can help.
Oh, yeah, it looks kind of funny with those like,
Yeah. It could be, I just don't want to open it up to be every day, unless they want to bring their own costumes. I don't want to be in charge of giving them costumes every week and all that, because it's really I don't want, the workshops are never designed to cannibalize the actual classes. They're designed to be a reward for people that are practice. We need to try to move it around and take that. I would want to be I'm not a really want to be that. That's not what the school is about. But we have a unique situation. I'm going to try to figure out what is the best thing to do right now, and then we're kind of rebranding all of our stuff. And it's more expensive.
Is it used to make flight paper and shit like that?
So, I need to kind of get Yeah, there's a lot of nice stuff in here. I think it's a little bit atrophied in here. A little too soon. Yeah. So there's some things you might want to watch. You kind of cartoon it out a little bit, like it's a little narrow on the rib cage and everywhere else. But he does have that kind of going on, but I think you could exaggerate it even more. There's some beautiful line work in it, though. Like the way you're manipulating the lines and the way you're drawing. But yeah, it's just having all those pieces come together to provide context. And that's the one thing I think is something on it, is that it's not quite matching up. I mean, I love a lot of the drawing. There's some really nice drawing. So yeah, just download it in.
Yeah.
And that's always a problem. I don't care.
This one's
I don't care all my drawings are shit, you know, so it's slightly bigger. What was the effective proportion?
Yeah, I'm trying to get
So,
volume capture.
What have you been doing since I mean, you've been studying still a lot, or are you just been at home, or what do you?
Well, I spent a lot of time in was working in LA for most of it.
All right, have a good one. Uh-huh.
And I just wrapped up my freelance gig, so
Oh, that's cool.
I'm in the feedback a little bit.
Okay, good. It's always good to see you. Yeah, just, I mean, was it a good freelance?
Yeah, it helped me save up a bit. And
That's always good. That's fun, it's funny, you have those spurts of hardcore where you know you don't have to try. Yeah, I'm not doing this for, day to day out for 20 years. Yeah, you can work pretty hard when you know.
Yeah, I like the work and that take time off managing my resources.
Yeah. Let's see, did you fill out, or you know that first call? Well, yeah, I'll let her know, because I know we have a new accountant that just moved up to Oregon, who's an old friend of ours, who's been working with us, but she was getting her life together, and Kristen might take back over the resume well check, because she's a little flaky right now, she's got a newborn, and it's like, well, okay, if you can't do it smooth, then Chris will go back to doing it, so just to give her an email, let her know if you have time. Okay, she'll be back in, she'll yeah, she's up in LA right now. She'll be back.
So getting pretty close to wrapping it up here, so if you have any last questions, go ahead and fire away and we'll get those answered for you.
So Lydian is asking, do you paint a lot in gouache also, Eric? Like for comp studies a la Jeff?
Not as much as I would like to. I do, but not as much as I would like to. In fact, my color comp.
Finish your bake. And write your
My favorite is a donkey next to you, huh? Yeah, a little.
Are you gonna put her in jail? Oh yeah. I was like trying to mean some earlier. He was like rushing out the door because he was late to work. So it was okay. Obviously I do have some.
Crazy, bro.
This is tiny little paper scissors. Yeah, I could have done that. That's so awesome. I did his too when he was like rushing out the door. I didn't have time. I literally did it in 10 minutes. Yeah, that's true. Oh yeah, I know, like, we got our bowls with guacamole. Oh yeah.
It's like 4 inches away from the
Yeah, Mr. Gist.
How you doing?
Good.
Yeah. You can't stop eating.
Still broadcasting, or you're just going for your own?
Yeah, it's still broadcasting. Are there questions on
Let's
this?
see.
The last one was, can we share this with other people for the auction?
Okay, let's see. I'm saying, do you paint a lot in gouache? Also, or also Eric, like for comp studies? Do you do your comps in gouache?
Yeah, there it is. There it is.
I was like,
So are you doing anything else today or just?
nah, I think I'm just gonna chill back and take our cat.
They're all stuff for maintenance.
Well, I just like to go home for a year and then just, and I got everything now.
Yeah, definitely. Good luck.
She's 16 now, so.
Why is one of your images really blurry and one's really
Because it's a lower resolution image. Yeah, I just got them off the internet, so.
We're polyamorous. We are, yeah. We've been meeting for like a year and a half. We're actually doing it okay. Except for Halloween thing.
You guys are better than I've ever done. I mean, I went vegetarian for maybe 90% vegetarian for like 4 or 5 years. I wouldn't eat once a week. But I mean, for me, it was really hard to do that. But she was doing vegan for like 5, 6 years now.
Yeah, she's like totally hardcore eating.
Yeah.
Maybe it's like kind of extreme, like how do you do
She
that?
goes through phases where she'll use up a little bit, and
Yeah.
because you gotta be careful a little bit, you know, because it's just a hard way to eat well. I mean, and she's been learning about it over years and years, but she had some issues with some vitamin deficiency stuff, so she started eating it every once in a while and other things. But overall, she stays about 90% vegan.
That's what we do. It's
Yeah.
impossible, you realize like it's impossible to go out anywhere and eat.
Well, I'm traveling too. You just gotta be flexible on
Yeah.
the road or anything.
Yeah, if you're in Encino, it's okay, yeah, are there options?
Go to Oklahoma and try to get salad.
Seriously, like.
No, like, videos about that, you know, they think it's like Star Trek.